I'm 63 years old, and I thought that the issues of racism and the discrimination against the LGBT community would have been resolved much earlier in my life, but it hasn't. But we're making headway, and this is a statement that we're making tonight, that we are all equal, we are all one community, and there's no reason to be otherwise.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, this matter is before you at the request of Councilors Williamson and Litrell, and then the council as a whole decided that a work session was appropriate before enacting any ordinance so that more information could be provided and the public could have an opportunity to weigh in on the issue. I've prepared a memo on this issue as part of the packet, and I don't intend to go over that information in its entirety here, but I will summarize some of the salient points. The term civil union can be defined in a variety of ways, but for purposes of this discussion, I've suggested that it is, quote, the recognition of the relationship of any two persons, regardless of their gender or sexual orientation, to manage their personal affairs through the formation of contractual agreements. The Arizona Attorney General, in response to a civil union ordinance proposed by the town of Bisbee, has opined that cities and towns can enact ordinances recognizing civil union agreements, but only to the extent that those ordinances deal with matters within their authority. Ordinances cannot preempt state law or attempt to grant rights and authority to couples that contravene state or federal law. For example, Bisbee's initial draft ordinance attempted to give the same rights and benefits to two people who entered into a civil union that each party to a marriage had, including community property rights, adoption rights, etc. The Attorney General objected to this attempt, stating that this was contrary to law and that a city or town could not grant such rights. Bisbee then went back and modified its ordinance by removing references to areas preempted by state law, such as adoption and community property. Two other Arizona cities have adopted some form of a civil union ordinance. Those cities are Jerome and Tucson. Jerome's ordinance is identical to Bisbee's. Both of these ordinances set their respective municipalities up as a repository for documents certifying that two people, regardless of their gender or sexual orientation, have entered into agreements defining their relationship. In the material you've been provided, I've spelled out some major differences between the Tucson and Bisbee ordinances and have prepared a possible draft ordinance that borrows from these versions. Because of the limitations set by the Attorney General indicating that cities and towns can only legislate on matters solely within the city's jurisdiction and control, civil union ordinances have spelled out only two areas in which a civil union can be recognized or treated within the jurisdiction of a city. These areas are hospital visitation rights and city insurance. Persons who have entered into a civil union are entitled to, by these ordinances, to have the same visitation rights in hospitals or emergency rooms that a married couple would have. Likewise, persons who have entered into a civil union have the same right to be beneficiaries on the city-sponsored insurance policies and any other city activities that might deal with married couples or whatever. It should be noted that the city of Sedona's health insurance already offers coverage for and benefits for domestic partners who are defined as a person of the same or opposite sex who has the same principal place of abode as the employee and meets the requirements such as legal age and not being related by blood and having lived with the other person for at least 12 months. And as Tim mentioned, Nick, at the request of Councilor McIlroy, has done some further research concerning the number of civil unions that have been recognized by cities of Tucson, Bisbee, and Jerome. Bisbee, a city of 5,498 people, has had 5 applications, 3 of which were from out of town. Jerome, a city of 444, has not had any applications yet. Tucson, a city of 524,000, had a previous domestic partnership ordinance that was enacted in 2003, and then this ordinance was changed to a civil union ordinance in 2013. And since that change, there have been 36 applications under the new civil union ordinance. What staff is seeking tonight is direction concerning first whether the council wishes to move forward with enacting a civil union ordinance. And if so, then as set forth in the council packet, I've delineated a number of areas where the council will need to give direction on the content of a proposed ordinance. These areas include the amount of the filing fee, criteria for eligibility, acceptance of additional documents, a statement of shared intentions, and whether or not we would authorize the solemnization of civil unions. With that, I'm open to any questions you might have.
You know, this is interesting. I haven't been in the council chambers since I retired last year. And Mr. Mayor, I was wondering, for old time's sake.
Oh, here we go.
For old time's sake, could I do my presentation from the staff table? I'd really.
Sure, why not?
I'm just kidding.
Wants to go there again.
Yeah, I don't blame him.
You really want to do that, John?
No, I don't. I'm just teasing you. I'm a member of the board of directors of the Sedona Verde Valley chapter of PFLG, which stands for Parents, Families, and Friends of Lesbians and Gays. And I'm going to be reading a letter from our president, Susan Hughes, who was unable to attend today's meeting. And this is also from her and from the PFLG board. Dear Mayor Adams and City Council, PFLG Sedona Verde Valley encourages the Sedona City Council to adopt an ordinance recognizing civil unions for same-sex couples, similar to ordinances in Bisbee, Tucson, and Jerome. Excuse me, and to also adopt an ordinance similar to Flagstaff that prohibits discrimination based on sexual orientation or gender identity or gender expression in the areas of housing and employment. And you've got the letter in front of you, and you also have the brochure, the local PFLG brochure. PFLG, Parents, Families, and Friends of Lesbians and Gays, and we've added bisexuals, transgender, and questioning, and you'll see that on the brochure. The list just keeps getting longer. Started in the mid-1970s and is a national support organization of family members and friends of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender LGBT people. PFLG also provides support to and advocates for the LGBT community. The mission of PFLG Sedona Verde Valley is to provide a support system for families and friends of lesbians, gays, bisexual, and transgender persons in their effort to understand, accept, and support their children with love and pride. Provide education for individuals in the community at large on the nature of homosexuality. 3, support the full human rights and civil rights of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender persons. And 4, speak out and act whenever necessary to defend and enhance those human rights and civil rights. PFLG Sedona Verde Valley's goal is to create a healthy, tolerant local community that celebrates diversity and respects every person. We dispel negative myths about LGBT people and communicate the truth about our loved ones. We further aim to promote understanding of LGBT people as healthy, normal, responsible, productive, loving, and caring human beings. We educate our community to promote greater acceptance and respect for LGBT persons. We advocate in a grassroots fashion for equal rights, not special rights, for our relatives and friends. And again, PFLG Sedona Verde Valley encourages the Sedona City Council to adopt both a civil union ordinance for same-sex couples and an ordinance that prohibits discrimination based on sexual orientation or gender identity or gender expression in the areas of housing and employment. Sincerely, Susan Hughes, President of PFLG Sedona Verde Valley, and also the Board of Directors for PFLG. And PFLG is ready and willing, Mr. Mayor and Council, to assist the Council and the staff on the development and adoption of these equal rights ordinances. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, John.
Good seeing you.
Okay, next speaker is Lynn Ennis.
Hello, I'm Lynn Ennis. I live in Sedona. Thank you for putting together this ordinance that brings us closer to being one people. 12 years ago today, people who acted to divide and conquer triggered the reverse. From the moment the first plane hit the North Tower in New York, wherever we were, we reached out to our family and loved ones. As the days passed, we put flags on our cars. We honked, we waved, we looked people in the eye. For a brief span, we were Americans and we were one. We experienced equality. The ordinance you are voting today to add to the City of Sedona Code moves us a step closer to that human ideal, that all people are equal and therefore should be equal under the law, a fitting act for today, 9/11. Not until 1850 could a man who didn't own property vote. 20 years later, black men were given the right to vote. And another 50 years, women could vote. My point is, when it comes to equality, legal access and protection do not just happen. Protecting equality requires vision, leadership, and courage. Because the oppressed, the unequal, cannot do for themselves what the privileged can do for them. People in power have to step up. That is what you, the Sedona City Council, are doing today. I'm wearing the outfit I was married in Washington State 5 months ago. On the 20th anniversary of our exchanging vows privately in Muir Woods, a week before we moved in together in Los Angeles. This is our wedding memory album. Sedona neighbors and merchants have cheered us and helped us as we prepared for this momentous event. We've been asked, does the piece of paper make a difference? It does to us. Ask me. Let's look one another in the eye and be one for a moment, and I'll share my experience. What will Sedona's ordinance do for us? It tints the complexion of our hometown as a bit more enlightened. As an influential city, Sedona is painting a bold stroke of leadership that will eventually move the state. There were times when it was the law to discriminate. It is now time to make the law to not discriminate. And may I just add a suggestion to your first sentence in the ordinance? Just modify it slightly. We support the right of every person to enter into a lasting and meaningful relationship with a partner of his or her choice, regardless of the gender or sexual orientation of the parties. Thank you.
Thank you.
So can Sedona become a place where people find peace not only in themselves, but in their most important relationships? Can Sedona become a place where all people are honored for their choices in love? And can Sedona become a place where as a community we can acknowledge and create pathways for that love to be as magnificently expressed as the beauty of our surroundings? Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'm flooded with memories of loved ones. Who suffered in the shadows, except in their love for me. Their love for others. They were there, and they lived a life of love, and they had all the human warts that we all have. So I support this fully. I support it fully as the right thing to do, and a healing thing to do, not only for those of these persuasions, but also for those of us who have been, judgmental at times and separate at times. I think it was John that said an organization talked about that we be tolerant, that we practice tolerance, and for me that's a bump along the road towards love, and the higher level of a loving relationship is full acceptance, just full acceptance without judgment, and so I'm grateful that this is, and I'm grateful to Councilors Litrell and Williamson for bringing this forward, and
Sedona should be helping to lead this effort. Is this meaningful to you? Does this matter? And a number of people said to me, it's symbolic. Others felt that it was really essential, and that it was essential because even though the Supreme Court has overturned the Defense of Marriage Act, which gives federal rights, that we living in Arizona are operating under states' rights, and therefore we don't have the same rights on the state level here. But that as community by community makes a statement, there could be an ultimate effect on the entire state of Arizona. So
I definitely support this. I have personal interest in this. I have a cousin, I have a nephew, and I have a whole lot of friends that are gay and lesbian. But with regards to, I know, Mike, you're not a tax attorney, but it was my understanding that this really helps in the areas of tax with regards to like survivor benefits that gay and lesbians don't have. But besides that, I just can't stand it when people don't have equality and equal opportunities. So I believe this is one small step in the whole process of the state of Arizona, and I welcome this. And like I said, I have to thank Councilor Williamson and Councilor Litrell in bringing this up. I don't even think that way. I'm not wired that way. But when I saw it come up, I said that's something to jump on because, like I said, I've got family and I got a heck of a lot of friends, and I know growing up they had a tough time.
I'll first say that I am predisposed to support this ordinance if properly worded and accepted by the Attorney General.
I'll make my comment now. Because this is an ordinance that's not like covered loads or something that has no personal impact. This is something the community is going to need to embrace because it has long-term implications of a lot of different natures. What I would suggest council do, since time is not of the essence, is to have some listening sessions in the community at the library and at West Sedona School, talk to the civic clubs and see what their feeling is, and if we can get the will of the people in Sedona, because the audience here is a microcosm of 10,000 people. I don't think this group represents our community, at least I don't think they do. I would like to have the community accept and buy into this, and if they will, I will support it. But until that happens, I think we should wait and find out what the larger community thinks about this.
Regarding Councilor McIlroy's concerns about taking this to the community and finding out what the will of the people is, I'm a big proponent of that, of finding out what the will of the community is on major issues. However, I am very clear in my heart that the will of the community is with us. By the way, I do agree with the change in the introduction, so maybe we can start there. Mm-hmm. And maybe you could read that back. Sherry, do you have that? Then maybe Lynn can read it to us and we can get it recorded and see if we can agree on that.
It's basically a little insertion from the Bisbee introduction. We support the right of every person to enter into a lasting and meaningful relationship with a partner of his or her choice, regardless of the gender or sexual orientation of the parties. The main addition is the lasting, meaningful relationship, not just a contract, which you could have with a gardener.
So the direction would be to move forward with the preparation of the ordinance.
Mayor,
I will hand over the the suggestions that I have here and see if they make any sense.
Mayor, I heard a mention of the September 24th agenda. Is that the City Council's direction, is to put this on the agenda for September 24th?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I think that that really concludes the discussion here, unless anybody has anything else.
I think if there's one thing the will of the people doesn't have any sway over, in my mind, is civil liberties and civil rights. If it did, we would still have slavery in the South. I think that when it comes to civil rights, you don't ask everybody what they think.
I want to thank everybody for showing up this afternoon. We appreciate your heartfelt testimonies, and we look forward to actually legalizing civil union in Sedona. Without objection.